Hold the line.
One last battle to hold the line against the night.
The line must be drawn here. This far, no farther.
Hold the line. No one gets through, no matter what.
Sir, what are your orders?
There's only one order, Lieutenant. We hold.
Incoming transmission.
Allied reinforcements have arrived from the west.
On Mojo 50 Radio. The Millennial Conservative Resistance begins right here, right now.
Oh, yes indeed, ladies and gentlemen, boys, girls, children of all ages, the new Millennial Conservative Resistance does indeed begin right here, right now, with you, and you are listening to, and God, I hope you're watching, the Holonet on the mighty, the powerful Mojo 50. Oh! Alright, ladies and gentlemen, it is the 21st of September, Saturday, in the year of our Lord, 2019. How the heck are you? It's been a pretty crazy week. It really has. Taking a look at the news, it seems like all of the Anglophone nations, all of the former British colonies and Britain, are all going to hell at once, doesn't it? I mean, think about it. We're seeing explosive decompression of the political situation in the Middle East. We're seeing destabilization here at home in the United States. And then on top of that, Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, the pride of the Liberal Party in Canada, leader of the government and center bloc, was pictured, photographed, and also filmed in blackface, not one, not two, but 3 times. And he doesn't even know if that's the full extent. He doesn't know if there might be more times where he dressed up in blackface. Which, ordinarily, I don't care if you dress up in blackface. When I was a kid, we didn't have a lot growing up. So sometimes my mom would have to improvise our Halloween costumes. So she dressed me up as a bum one year, right? Now, I'm sure you've seen this, a kid dressed up as a bum or a kid dressed up as a coal miner. So what she did is she burned a cork. She burned the tip of a cork, let it cool, right? And then rubbed the cork all over my face to make me look dirty, okay? That is, by degree, different from blackface. It's applying an agent to darken your complexion. Granted, the goal here was to make you look dirty because I was dressing up as a bum. So it was meant to make me look sooty and dusty and that manner. It wasn't intended to make me look like a black guy. But at the same time, do you care? As a conservative, as a libertarian-minded conservative, individual responsibility? No, I really don't care. I think we get entirely too offended. Are there racist repercussions to blackface? I suppose there could be, but I think these situations need to be judged individually. Do I think that Governor Northam was in much poorer taste, for example, dressing up in blackface, accompanying somebody dressed up in a Klan outfit, basically reimagining a lynching? Yeah, I think that's racist as hell. But do I think Justin Trudeau dressing up in brown face to appear in a costume party that is themed Arabian Nights, do I think that is per se on the nose racist? No, I really don't. I don't think it looks great, but I don't think it's on the nose racist either. Your mileage may vary. One thing I think everybody can agree on is, isn't it great to see somebody on the left kind of hoisted by their own petard? Don't you get just that bit of satisfaction deep in your chest, down in your cochlear region, in the cockles, where you see somebody who has championed this outrage culture, this cancel culture, just get mauled by it unexpectedly, like when Sarah Silverman got canceled, and when Lena Dunham suddenly couldn't find any more work. It is on a certain level satisfying, but we have to realize that's a titch hypocritical, but it's kind of a guilty pleasure, where we're crying out that, you can't treat people this way, that, cancel culture is wrong, that this culture of offense is wrong, and it's petty, and then you see one of them get it, and you kind of snicker a little. You go, sucks to be you. So yeah, that's where we're at right now. Justin Trudeau buried right now in controversy and some really terrible apologies. Now, I'm not going to waste time on this show because everybody's beaten it up and done it to death about just the god-awful apologies that he's putting out there. Just the ineloquent, very, very poor quality apologies. And I'm of the belief that, you don't apologize for this kind of stuff because they're going to eat you alive. They're not going to accept your apology, Justin. They're going to eat you alive. And this is proof of concept that the left absolutely has not gotten over their fascination with eating their own. But let's take a step back, as I mentioned earlier. My hair's sticking up. Let's take a step back and look at the macro situation and try to take a look at things in a comprehensive worldview and realize that right now we are seeing political instability, not just in the United States, with the latest coming out of, let's see here, CNBC, that the Pentagon has now announced we will deploy U.S. forces to the Middle East after the attack on Saudi Arabian oil facilities, which is allegedly conducted by Iran, which I really do believe that Iran was behind this completely. Washington, the Pentagon will deploy U.S. forces to the Middle East on the heels of strikes on Saudi Arabian oil facilities, U.S. Secretary of Defense Mark Esper announced Friday. He said, the president has approved the deployment of U.S. forces, which will be of defensive in nature and primarily focused on air and missile defense, Esper said, adding that Saudi Arabia requested the support, and we will also work to accelerate the delivery of military equipment to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the UAE to enhance their ability to defend themselves. President Trump said that it certainly looks as if Iran appears responsible for the attack, but that he wants to avoid war. So we're deploying forces to Saudi Arabia now. Are you happy about that? Because I'm not. I always caution against the use of American military force. And there actually was a good story that I'm not going to jump into this week, but it's a story on the Washington Examiner, an op-ed piece, that they're talking about the need for Congress to reclaim the ability to declare war, and that we would be so much better off if all of our wars were actually declared wars. And, I'm inclined to agree that we would be much better off as a nation if all of our wars were declared wars, because then people would realize what war means if it took more to get there. But in the interim, I did want to tell you about a great group of former war fighters, who are now waging the peace. They're attempting to change policy in other nations through a different means. I'm talking about the guys and gals over at Combat Flip-Flops. At Combat Flip-Flops right now, they have the AK-47 flip-flop off, 20% off, and you can use your promo code HOLLOW25. Combat Flip-Flops is working to create peaceful, forward-thinking opportunities for self-determined entrepreneurs affected by conflict. Our willingness to take bold risks, community connection, and distinct designs communicate business, not bullets, flipping the view on how wars are won. Through persistence, respect, and creativity, they empower the mindful consumer to manufacture peace through trade. They grow entrepreneurs in conflict areas, they build communities, and they fund women's education. Join the unarmed forces today. Be a part of the community built on hope, passion, and strength. Rebuild nations, create change, or keep doing the same thing and expect a different result, guys. You can get on there right now. Promo code HOLLOW25, HOLLOW25. Get you 25% off on combatflipflops.com. That's combatflipflops.com, promo code HOLLOW25. Love those guys. Don't know if you ever had a chance to chat with any of them, but I was talking to one of the owners a couple weeks ago. Awesome people, man. Gotta love vets because they give it to you right between the eyes. But it's always interesting to talk to them. So moving right along, kind of chugging right along. I'm going, high speed, low drag today. And my apologies if I'm a little all over the map. This show kind of got improvised. Had to make some changes to it at the last minute. But hey, it's a cool thing about having my own show. So I digress. I was saying, we're seeing the destabilization of all of the Western nations. In the United States right now, news has recently come out from the Ukraine, which I say recently come out. Host Matt Locke, formerly of Mojo 50, currently doing his own gig as Lock and Load over on, I believe it's American News, America's Voice News. Check that out if you haven't had the chance. We all know that from a couple months back, Joe Biden's son was involved in some shady stuff in the Ukraine. Okay. But now, this from the Hill, one of the biggest political scandals in history and bigger than Watergate. These are words that Donald Trump used to describe the allegations that an American president used his office to investigate the expected nominee of the opposition political party in 2016. That was 3 years ago when President Barack Obama arranged for wiretaps on President Trump's campaign. Now, shoe seems to be on the other foot because news has come out that President Trump was urging the leadership of the Ukraine to investigate former Vice President Joe Biden's son for the shady dealings that he had in the Ukraine. Now, here's the issue. Acting as President of the United States and urging the Ukraine to investigate his opponent and his opponent's son for crimes. That just doesn't look good. Okay? So 3 years ago, it was the investigation of the Trump campaign associates alleged for foreign business deals and Russian influence. Now, President Trump faces the same condemnation for allegedly pressuring the Ukrainian president to investigate former Vice President Joe Biden and his son Hunter Biden, a request made when the United States was deciding whether to give $250 million in military aid to the Ukraine. Scandals involving everything from paying off strippers to self-dealing have swirled around Trump for 3 years. Let's see here. State the obvious. If the president used his office to force another country to investigate a political opponent, it is just as serious as Trump previously described. That is why it was important to investigate the Obama administration allegedly targeting Trump associates. This latest allegation could be the basis for an impeachable offense as an abuse of power, as was done with the second article of impeachment against President Nixon. Yet, much has to be established, and as usual, many in the political arena are dispensing with the need to see actual evidence, as former Secretary of Housing and Urban Development and Democratic presidential candidate Julian Castro already declared President Trump a criminal and demanded that he be impeached immediately. So here's the story. Hunter Biden, during President Joe Biden's tenure, spearheading American diplomatic efforts in the Ukraine, has been accused of some particularly shady stuff. President Trump has been pressuring the Ukrainian government to launch an investigation into Hunter Biden in his official capacity as President of the United States. This is one of those really, really ugly gray areas. Because, of Course, as President of the United States, you want to investigate potential malfeasance from even former members of the American government. You want to have that reputation that you hold your people to a high standard. But at the same time, this man is your opponent in the upcoming election. So how do you do that without appearing biased? It's impossible. What President Trump could have done here as a potential alternate is he could have recused himself and asked Congress to make those entreaties to Ukraine. Or asked the Supreme Court to make those entreaties to Ukraine. There are different ways he could have gone about it. But President Trump directly engaging with the Ukraine and urging their president and their government to investigate Hunter Biden is an issue. It's an issue. But I am at a loss to answer how the president could do this better. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. This is on Facebook Live as always. You can hit me up on the MeWe's, the BitChutes, on the YouTubes. Tweet at the HoloNet. I want to know what you think. Is there another way President Trump could have gone about this? You find out that the business that was going on in the Ukraine between Joe Biden and his son was crooked as a question mark, was dirty to the core. And you're running against Joe Biden. And you're trying to preserve the diplomatic situation in the Ukraine. What do you do? What do you do? You can't go public unless those charges are confirmed. So what do you do? And in the end, I think, out of an abundance of caution, going through back channels to the Ukrainian government, instead of launching, say, an FBI investigation, all President Trump has done is given them a stick to beat him with, which I've seen this president do over and over and over again, is go for the best intentions, but wind up giving the left another stick to beat him with. So here we are. Yet another reason for the left to hopelessly call for the impeachment of the president. We have increasing instability over the pond in the UK. We're going to do a quick update on that, probably before the break at the bottom of the hour. We have a destabilization of center block. By the way, if you want a center block, by the way, is the nickname for Canadian Parliament. If you want a really great breakdown on that, gotta give a shout out and some love to my Mojo brother, the American Canuck. The Americanuck. I have such a hard time with that. I want to say the American Canuck. But the Americanuck show, I was listening to him this past week. I really need to try to make more of an effort to listen to our full catalog of shows. But Americanuck presents a really great view of what's going on north and south of the Canadian border, on both sides, and how that interaction looks. So check that out on Mojo 50. He did a great breakdown of this. I think it was on Friday. Let me check here. Yeah, that's Americanuck Radio on Mojo 50, and that's Mike Flip. Mike Flip did an excellent job breaking this down, and he really has a good handle on Canadian politics, as well as the interaction between Washington, D.C. and Ottawa. And the funny thing is, I should probably know a little bit more about Canadian news, because I actually have a lot of family up there. Holloway family is from the Newfies, Newfoundland. I know I've mentioned that 10 or 12 times. But yeah, that's where my dad's family comes from. My dad's family is half Canadian, half Pennsylvania English. But check that out with Mike Flip. So you have destabilized Trump administration right now, under threat of impeachment, an enhanced threat of impeachment because of this business with the Ukraine. You have Joe Biden staring down the barrel of a huge scandal that is not going to go away now, no matter what he does. He and his son, Hunter Biden, were involved in some dirty stuff in the Ukraine. And if you listen to Matt Locke, like I said about 2 months ago, they were involved in some dirty business with China, too. Hunter Biden went from being a nobody to being a powerful investment banker managing billions on behalf of the Chinese. And that's a hell of a turn. I thought I was hot stuff when I went from, nothing to writing for one of the most prestigious conservative websites in the country and, later on hosting a podcast on my own. I thought that was hot stuff. But going from nothing to handling billions for the Chinese and making yourself a very rich man in the process, that puts a lot of us to shame, doesn't it? Had to wet the whistle there. Now, Brexit. Brexit. Before we jump into that crap storm, I'm going to tell you how to prevent a crap storm of your own. How do you prevent a crap storm. You go to lovemytummy.com. And that, folks, that is called a segue. I honestly think that's one of the better Love My Tummy segues that I've done. Avoid the crap storm. Go to lovemytummy.com. Check out Atron Teal. Atron Teal on lovemytummy.com. Promo code Mojo gets you $99, 3-month supply of Atron Teal. lovemytummy.com/Mojo. Atron Teal is full of polyphenols. Now, I failed chemistry, so forget about biochemistry. Polyphenols are important. Polyphenols are desired by your body. They aid in your digestion. They help to reduce the bubble guts, the thunder poops, things like that. All of your health emanates from your gut. So if you can get your digestive system in order, something like Atron Teal is going to help you. It's going to increase your quality of life. It's going to help you to lose weight if that's your goal. There's a dosage pattern that you can take for that. It'll help you balance your system out. It will help control and regulate your bowel. Because that's the important thing. Reducing bloating, reducing the abdominal discomfort that you may face. Changing your bowel habits. You can order it now. Like the online reviews are crazy. Relief from years of stomach pain after eating. I mean, getting over GI tract issues, bloating and gas. I mean, it's important. If your gut hurts, nothing else works out. So go on lovemytummy.com/Mojo. Promo code Mojo, $99, 3-month supply of Atron Teal from lovemytummy.com. All right. Good do it now. Buckle your seatbelts. Make sure your seatbacks and tray tables are in the upright and locked position. We're jumping over the pond. All right, got that crap out of the way. And going to CNN International, as much as I hate to do it, this is actually still a pretty good rundown if you haven't been deep involved. You know, if you haven't been deep inside Brexit, Boris Johnson is backed into a corner. He is now being sued in the British Supreme Court for allegedly misleading the Queen when it came to dismissing or proroguing Parliament. And he is pretty much committed to a do-or-die Brexit. Here's where things currently stand, according to CNN. A couple of weeks ago, Johnson asked the Queen to suspend Parliament, ostensibly to restart the parliamentary session and return with a fresh legislative agenda. It was merely a coincidence, of course, that many lawmakers were also agitating to close down the option of a no-deal Brexit on October 31st. But before the suspension took effect, a majority of lawmakers conspired to seize control of the parliamentary business and passed legislation that, in theory, forces his government to request a Brexit extension from the European Union if it fails to negotiate a deal. So even if Johnson's real intent had been to shut down that effort, it didn't work. And to make things worse, the UK's highest court spent this week hearing evidence alleging that Johnson misled the Queen over his motives for suspending the UK's legislative body. The outcome of this case comes early next week, but in some respects, it doesn't matter a huge amount. Whether Parliament is forced to return early or not, the political reality of Brexit will collide with Johnson's government soon enough. And given the lack of a majority for anything, an election would be the only way to fix it. So CNN is saying that the UK is about to be in for the most vicious election they've seen in a long time. So why will it be so vicious? The political atmosphere in the UK is more hostile than it's been in decades. Corbyn and Johnson are not only miles apart in terms of their politics, their parties also hold one another in open contempt. Here's how one conservative source spells out the likely attack lines the party will run on Corbyn. There's his past association with alleged anti-Semites, his support for a second Brexit referendum, but his decision to remain neutral in any campaign, his record on national security, and whether he can be trusted to protect the nation. As the source puts it, unkindly but revealingly, his generic weirdness. They say he's an easy target. Anything you say about him being hard left or confused on Brexit or dodgy associations have the added benefit of being true. The sources say, like Trump, there's always a tweet. Meanwhile, Corbyn is pointing out equal issues with Johnson, which Johnson has defended day in, day out. Long story short, it's getting ugly as hell. And it's going to get worse. So we're coming into a particularly nasty election in 2019 for the UK. Maybe they can push it out to 2020. I highly doubt it. I think this thing's going to go down in the next couple of months. Probably November or December, we're going to see a snap election called in the UK, because no matter how Brexit swings, Boris Johnson has no effective government left. In the UK, the way Parliament works is you have, even more so than here in the United States, you have to have a majority. Who is Prime Minister is decided by who has a majority. That's why, thank God, we're a republic and not a parliamentary system. But I digress. If Boris Johnson can't reclaim the appropriate number of seats in Parliament for the Conservative Party, or get a working coalition going with somebody like the Ulster Democratic Party, the DUP, he's boned. He's royally boned. He can't make it work if he can't make that happen. And I've run over my time. All right, folks, take a quick break. When we come back, it's over the wider pond to Australia. You're listening to, hopefully watching, the Holonet on the Mighty Mojo 50. Stick around.
That's
on Mojo 50 Radio. The Millennial Conservative Resistance begins right here, right now.
We're back. Listening to Holonet on the mighty Mojo 50. Thank you for sticking with me for the first half hour. I ran over my time. Ron's gonna be pissed. It happens. One of the nice things about having your own show is that... Oh, wait, actually, I don't get to decide how long my breaks are. Damn it! By the way, Ron, Beth, kind of like Izzo said, this is why I need an intern. I'm just going to put that out there. Because I don't keep track of this show clock very well. All right. Well, I promised you we were going to do it. Now we're going to do it back over the pond. Well, actually, it's the bigger pond, not the Atlantic, but the Pacific Ocean. To Australia. Little waltzing Matilda there. Okay, Scott Morrison, Prime Minister of Australia, is scrambling to contain the political mushroom cloud after President Trump, during his state visit today, raised the nuclear option with Iran, because President Trump does that, and Australian press clearly is not used to it. So the Australian Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, was forced to summarize the surrealism after U.S. President Donald Trump's comments, according to Mick Silkus. It seemed appropriate, albeit entirely surreal, this according to TheGuardian.com, to be inducted into the vagaries of the Trumpiverse by bearing witness in the Oval Office to the American president suddenly raising the specter of using nuclear weapons against Iran. Because we're getting into... World War III style here. Let's go with the background music because clearly The Guardian is panicking. Friday's program in Washington ran like clockwork while everybody had a script, but once we'd cleared the pomp and circumstance of the ceremonial welcome for Scott Morrison on the southern lawn of the White House, once the Australian press pack tumbled out into the sparkling spring sunshine, we discovered Trump in an expansive mood. The leader of the free world kicked off the proceedings by announcing the administration was now imposing sanctions on Iran, targeting the national bank in response to Tehran's alleged involvement in drone attacks on Saudi oil facilities last weekend. As could have been predicted, these were the biggest sanctions anyone had ever seen. The highest sanctions ever imposed on a country, Trump purred. We've never done it to this level. The Treasury Secretary, Steven Mnuchin, then appeared. Just in case we'd failed to be sufficiently awed by the scale of the undertaking. This is very big, he reported, and departed. It is very big. The president then volunteered he intended to have a quiet word with Scott Morrison over the course of business meetings on Friday, Washington time, about potential military options in Iran, and whether Australia might be persuaded to join a new coalition of the willing. Excuse me. We'll see what happens, Trump said, sanguine with his forward sizzle. He then sat forward and settled his face into an expression that could be described as Delphic. Before we could process the information that Australia might be off to war in Iran, things spiraled. The unheralded military action could be, wait for it, nuclear. Trump noted that America had renovated the arsenal and acquired new nuclear capability, and the rest of the military was all brand new. We all hope, and Scott hopes, and we all pray that we never have to use nuclear. So, was that enough doom for you, for what The Guardian is painting this meeting as? President Trump makes one statement that, we've updated our nuclear arsenal and we hope we never have to use it. Which in another time, a more reasonable, sensible time, like 20 years ago, would seem appropriate, would seem to be speaking from a position of strength, where saying, You know, we've recently upgraded our nuclear capability. We really hope we don't have to use it. Why is he saying this? Because Iran is now a nuclear power. Iran is supported, propped up by at least 2 nuclear powers, Russia and China. So, isn't it apt to talk about America's recently updated nuclear arsenal? But no! The liberal rag, The Guardian, wants to paint the doom and surrealism. Like sitting down with President Trump is like sitting down with Dr. Strangelove and learning how to love the bomb, baby! Sorry. No. You get one paragraph out of the whole thing, and the reason why I threw on the Hell March, by the way, is to kind of illustrate the lead-up that they have as they describe President Trump's descent into insanity and their complete shock and disbelief as their own prime minister is then forced to summarize for President Trump the surrealism that they've experienced. Later on they say, Morrison soothed America. The Australian Prime Minister noted had taken a very measured approach with Iran to date. Of course, we would listen to whatever requests our Washington friends made, but it was important that we didn't get ahead of ourselves, the Prime Minister counseled. Let's just keep talking and take this one step at a time, Morrison thought, or prayed. It wasn't clear. Perhaps taking Morrison's cue, or perhaps ignoring it entirely, again one can only speculate. Trump then proceeded to praise himself for his restraint. It would be so easy, the president said, to no one in particular and everyone at the same time, to knock out 15 major things in Iran. I could do it right here, he said, and that appeared entirely plausible. It's all set to go. I could do it right here, and then you'd have a nice big story to report. But of course there was a twist. I think the strong person's approach, and the thing that does show strength, would be showing a little bit of restraint, President Trump said. So what the hell are they complaining about? They're painting this as if President Trump is a nuclear warmonger. Come on, guys. This feels like a coordinated effort to place Scott Morrison on the back foot, okay? To paint him as being deeply connected to President Trump in some way and potentially weaken him for perhaps an upcoming election in Canberra? Maybe. Thus far, Australia has managed to stay inert and really unscathed from the political storms that have broken out in London, Washington, and Ottawa. Hell, they've even managed to steer clear of the serious breakdown in Wellington, New Zealand, when they announced their massive gun grab following the mass shooting that they experienced this past year. The Christchurch shootings. So think about it. Think about your post-World War II history. ANZUS, you know, the Australia, New Zealand, United States alliance, plus NATO, represented all of the Western Anglophone nations. You have Britain, Canada, the United States, Australia, New Zealand. Right? The Five Eyes in the intelligence world. And you're seeing a socio-political, cultural breakdown in each one at the same time. Brexit in the UK. President Trump and the left's backlash here in the United States. Trudeau's scandals in Ottawa. The post-Christchurch gun grab in New Zealand. If I were Scott Morrison, I'd be nervous. Because it looks like the press is angling for you, Prime Minister Morrison. It looks like they're trying to draw an association, an aspersion, if you will, to President Trump. Never mind, this is the same Australian government that announced... Oh, God, what was it? Hang on. Was it Laura Southern? Was Laura Southern and Stefan Molyneux, I believe, were made personas non grata in Australia. Laura Southern, Australia. Yeah, Australia's Department of Home Affairs denied Laura Southern entry into the country. Yeah, here we go. This is from news.com.au. This is back in 18, where right-wing internet personality Laura Southern was denied a visa to enter Australia because she's too controversial. Here we go. The 23-year-old Canadian was scheduled to appear in Melbourne, Perth, Adelaide, Sydney, Brisbane, and Auckland alongside Stefan Molyneux in a series of events. Ow, that hurt. A series of events hosted by Axiomatic Media later this month, hours before she was due to fly out. So not days, not weeks, hours before she was due, her electronic travel authority was declined. She applied for a work visa 4 months ago, kept waiting and waiting, but they kept sending new hurdles. We've been told by our immigration lawyers that it's unprecedented. She said, I'm not surprised they are dragging out the process. So many people are offended by the debate and free speech that sometimes governments cower. It's just an easy way to play into the people who are totalitarian. It's a very scary precedent for free speech. Note Laura Southern, who's also been previously banned entry into the UK as well. So, is the destabilization of Australia in the offing? Last time we talked about Australia, we were talking about how the protests in Hong Kong, which have fallen out of the news of late, had spilled over into the north of Australia. And really, if you wanted to, you could consider the Hong Kong protests in the same sphere, because Hong Kong until 1999 was a very, very prosperous long-term British colony. But no, it's not done yet. Clashes in Hong Kong still happening. This is from the New York Times. God help us, all the muck that's fit to rake, but I'll give them this one. Clashes erupt in Hong Kong after dueling demonstrations. A nice photo there. Riot police at a shopping mall in Hong Kong on Saturday. Anti-government protesters clashed with police and threw gasoline bombs in Hong Kong on Saturday, a fresh sign that political tensions are running high in the Chinese territory ahead of the sensitive political anniversary. The clashes occurred after pro-democracy marches a few miles from Hong Kong's border with the Chinese mainland, and on the day when government supporters had swept the streets in a symbolic repudiation of the 3-month-old protest movement. Now, by the way, for those of you who were watching the Area 51 raid, that is what a protest looks like. Holy hell, that's a lot of people. This was the 16th successive weekend of unrest in the semi-autonomous territory, less than 2 weeks remaining before October 1st, the 70th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China under the Communist Party. Beijing does not want anything to mar that holiday, but the Hong Kong protesters are determined to do just that. The first event on Saturday was a citywide cleanup led by Junius Ho, a pro-Beijing lawmaker who is among the government's most vocal defenders. He visited several districts of Hong Kong holding a broom and a dustpan and theatrically tidied the sidewalks as the cameras rolled. National Day is almost here, plus it's the 70th anniversary this year, so we want to give Hong Kong a clean face, said Ennis Tang, 55, a volunteer who joined the cleanup events. So in Hong Kong, the troubles are continuing, with bombings and protests, and police cracking down hard. What is becoming of the nations of the West? We are tearing ourselves apart every single day. Here in Arizona, even, we're feeling the sting. Even in my local Arizona, according to the Washington Examiner, McCain donors are flipping over to Mark Kelly over the Republican incumbent in key Arizona Senate race. So the political battle lines here in Arizona are getting even more confusing than ever. We are so divided and so weak right now. And I don't mean militarily weak. I mean culturally weak, because divided is weak when it comes to a nation and when it comes to a culture and when it comes to a people. It used to be that our differences and our ideological differences strengthened us. But we have come now to such a place where we've dehumanized the opposition to such an extent that we don't view any foreign body to be an enemy. We view our countrymen to be the enemy. And it's not just us. It's in the UK. It's in Canada now. It makes you think, and I'm going to wax conspiratorial here. It makes you think that it's coordinated, doesn't it? It makes you almost think that there are some forces out there at work who are deliberately destabilizing the West. There are forces out there that have come out and said that they wish to destabilize the West, like the Muslim Brotherhood, like the Russian far-right influencers that are out there, like George Soros. There are people who have a stated objective and desire to destabilize the West. They have means, and they have motive, and they have money. There's Pueblos Sin Fronteras, People Without Borders, another confirmedly Soros-funded organization, which is bound and determined to destabilize America. And now we have men and women in Congress who are determined to destabilize the United States. We have Democratic presidential candidates who are determined to destabilize the United States further in order to drive us to a progressive socialist form of government, because people cry out for big government when things get bad. You can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs. What is it Saul Alinsky said? Never let a good crisis go to waste. Sometimes they have to manufacture the crisis, but it feels like we're dealing in manufactured crises across the world, in all the capitals of the Five Eyes. Except Australia. And I'm going to take a risk here. I'm going to make a prediction. Something is going to happen in Australia. Some form of scandal, some form of controversy that rocks the Parliament of Canberra to its core and probably jeopardizes the premiership of Scott Morrison, if not his successor. Something is going to come up because they're the only former British colony, the only Commonwealth nation that is so far untouched. Even in India, the administration of President Narendra Modi has been rocked by controversy over and over and over again. What is happening in these nations? Is it just the natural destabilization and devolution of their parliamentary systems, or in our case, our constitutional federalist republic here in the United States? Or is it being helped along by forces at work that we don't see? Is it being helped along by these special interest groups like the Open Society, or like Pueblos Sin Fronteras, or like the Muslim Brotherhood, or CARE, or ISNA? Or is it good old Pooty Poot in the background riding his grizzly bear? Are we looking at GRU plants and infiltrations and social media smart campaigns that are working to further destabilize us? Because one of two things it feels like is going to come in my lifetime. And I'm kind of waxing a little dark on this, and this is getting a little ranty, but one of two things I am certain is going to happen in my lifetime. We're either going to see the next really big war, really big, that is going to center around the Middle East, and it's going to suck in all the major powers of the world, or we're going to see a full-blown civil war here in the United States. Full-blown hot civil war in the United States, not just in the U.S. I think we could see an insurgency in England as well. Canada, I don't see it happening. I just see them being destabilized to the point of being ineffectual. Same thing with New Zealand, and same thing, I think, with Australia. They would just be rendered ineffectual and unable to assist. And I think that might be the goal. You make our allies incapable of intervention. And then you bring down the house here in the United States. And the only ones who are in a position to intervene would be those we don't want to. Primarily the EU, China, and Russia. Think about it. I think the most important thing going into the 2020 election is that we maintain civility. Is that we pull back and remember that however misguided they are, however hateful the rhetoric, however vehemently we disagree with our fellow Americans, they are still our fellow Americans. Whether you're pro-life or pro-choice, pro-Trump or anti-Trump. A lesson has to be learned by the left that you can't make all of your problems go away by calling somebody racist. But here's what you can do in the meanwhile. As conservatives, we stand together to fight for our freedoms. While we have far more members at Patriot Mobile than at a Joe Biden campaign rally, we need you to join Patriot Mobile today to support your values. Patriot Mobile provides reliable nationwide cell phone coverage. Keep your phone number, bring your own phone, or buy a new one. For a limited time, you can get a Mojo Z3 Play for only $10 a month. Get one free when you activate 2 new lines of service. This is not fake news. You can buy a Moto Z3 Play and get one free. The feature-rich phone has a large screen, high-quality camera, extended battery life with expandable storage option, with unlimited plans starting as low as $25 a month. Don't wait. Visit patriotmobile.com/mojo50 or call the U.S.-based team at 877-367-7524. You'll love speaking with patriots that passionately believe in freedom of speech, the Second Amendment, and the sanctity of life. Again, that's patriotmobile.com/mojo50 or call their U.S.-based team at 877-367-7524. You know, I don't want to end my show on a downer. I got like 5 minutes left. What can I do? I got like 5 minutes left. Here to go. Top of the hour. We went through the Ukrainian business with Hunter Biden. Talked about Brexit. Talked about Scott Morrison's visit and the Guardian hyperventilating. Hong Kong protests. Justin Trudeau blackface. Okay. All right. All right, guys. One more crazy story. Just one more damn crazy story. One more crazy story. All right. I'll do it. Owner of an Antifa-friendly Portland bar. Go figure. Portland. Yeah. Let patrons use illegal weapons against conservative activists, a state probe says. Oh, and look. He's holding a sign with the Soviet hammer and sickle that says ACAB. If you don't know what ACAB means, it means all cops are bastards. Yeah. If you ever see that, just know that that's what that means, and that's the kind of person that you're dealing with. Okay? The owner of a reportedly Antifa-friendly bar in Portland, Oregon, knowingly allowed patrons to use illegal weapons against conservative activists during a violent clash in May, an investigation by state regulators alleges, according to an expert. The report by the Oregon Liquor Control Commission says the owner of Cider Riot refused to remove unruly customers from his property and gave a misleading statement to authorities, the Oregonian reported. The attorney for the bar owner, Abram Goldman Armstrong, balked at the investigators' findings. It's not clear what OLCC would have wanted my client to do. Did they want Abe to be both a one-man police force and a bouncer, all the while he was dealing with a small triage hospital in his cidery? The commissioner's investigation has recommended multiple administrative charges. The investigation into the cider riot was prompted after several complaints were filed with the agency following a May 1st brawl. Law enforcement officials charged conservative activist and Patriot Prayer founder Joey Gibson, as well as 5 other men associated with the conservative group, with felony riot offenses. Gibson faces a $1 million lawsuit from Goldman Armstrong. On Friday, a judge rejected Gibson's request to have the case moved outside of Portland, the Oregonian reported. Goldman Armstrong stated his patrons were acting in self-defense, but clearly, according to the video, he was present and watching as patrons displayed aggressive behavior. During his first interview with regulators, a Cider Riot security guard omitted that he left his post, used mace, and fought with the conservative protesters. Nice, guys! Awesome! Alright, so before we go, I did want to give you guys a bit of sunshine. Just a little bit of sunshine. Just to help it all go down. MSNBC put out a poll this past week, and I think it may have slightly backfired on them. They put a poll out. They said, do you think people should be allowed to carry guns in public? To which 93% of people answered yes. The Second Amendment guarantees it. Fantastic. Only 4% said no, it's too dangerous. And only 3% said only for self-defense. So a total on this of 785,000 votes of people who know what the Second Amendment means and is for. Thank God. It gives some faith in your fellow American. Before we go, did want to remind you to go over to mojo50.com/shop and check out our KBD. Dr. Ken Brown, MD, has our CBD oil. Discount code MATT, M-A-T-T. We'll get you $15 off your purchase there. That's mojo50.com/shop, where we've got the KBMD CBD oil. Check that out today. Guys, no matter how dark it gets, we have to stay true to ourselves, stay true to each other, stay true to our values and our principles. From the forward operations base of Mojo 50 in the Sonoran Desert, I'm Matt Holloway. Good night. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America. From Phoenix,